This episode of the Kill Innovations podcast is brought to you by listeners like you. You can become a supporter by visiting shop.philmckinney.com and making a contribution. Your support helps defray the cost to produce, host, and stream the show. As always, any profits are donated to charities such as hackingautism.org. I'm Phil McKinney, and welcome to Season 11 of the Kill Innovations podcast, a show about ideas, creativity, and innovation. If you look up the Merriam-Webster's definition, it says that innovation is, quote, the act or process of introducing new ideas, devices, or methods, end quote. However, in a world of continuous technological and ideological advancement, how much is really new? The truth is, we are creative beings, but we don't create alone. While some will try to make the claim of being the sole creator of an innovation, the majority of our ideas are inspired by things and processes already in existence. This is true of one of history's most important innovations, Henry Ford's creation of the assembly line. This innovation has changed countless industries by altering the universal production process, and it came from an unlikely source. Many people may think it was simply a stroke of genius, but the assembly line actually came about through repurposing, taking something we already know and altering it to create something completely different. Henry Ford designed and executed the very first assembly line while creating his famed Model T, but the idea wasn't something that he truly came up with on his own. Ford found his inspiration in the efficiency of the Chicago meatpacking houses. The story goes that in watching the production process at one of these plants, he was mesmerized by the efficiency achieved when the meat was being cut down the line, each butcher executing a different cut as the meat continued its journey. Ford realized it could be reverse engineered. He could build his cars by having each employee place a different part on the car as it moved through the factory. Thus, the assembly line was created, leading to one of the biggest increases in productivity in industrial history. In a more recent example of inspiration, Ford used the idea of simulation from the aerospace industry to prototype and test new dashboard ideas. In a previous Kill Innovations podcast from December of 2009, I interviewed Dave Watson from Ford and Steve Bishop from IDEO, where they shared their co-innovation project on the Ford Fusion and the inspiration to use digital cockpits in airplanes as an inspiration for the first all-digital dashboards for cars. I'll post a link to that podcast in the show notes. Now, when it comes to these kinds of inspirations, there are many examples. Nike was also born through cross-industry innovation, a field in which they remained one of the leaders. How? They look for unlikely solutions to problems, ultimately finding unique innovations. Nike originated in 1960 when Oregon's coach Bill Bowerman was trying to design new soles with better grip for his track athletes. He found inspiration for his solution in a plain old waffle iron. And by the way, he ruined his wife's waffle iron when making the first pair of Nike running shoes. Now, Nike didn't stop there. The company has made innovations in reverse engineering part of the company values. One of their top-selling models, the Nike Shox, were designed using Formula One race cars as inspiration. While some of Nike's innovation inspirations seem to come from way out in left field, that's one of the factors that has differentiated them from the rest of their industry for decades. These two great innovators came up with their revolutionary ideas via unlikely sources and industries seemingly unrelated to their own. So the first step is to stop thinking of any other industry as irrelevant to yours. Where there is success, there is something to learn and possibly to adapt. Or as some would say, steal it. Make a habit of dissecting notable innovation successes, everything from successful startups like Uber or Airbnb to the popular food truck in your neighborhood. What exactly are they doing that works so well? What differentiates them from others in their field? In order to open yourself up to new concepts you may be able to adapt to your field, do some research on industries you know nothing about. Figure out what is driving those other industries and identify what intrigues you about them. And if you ever need some encouragement or inspiration, do some research on top innovators in history. Learn how they found their inspiration. Find out how they tinkered and failed and played with their ideas until they reached success. That's what repurposing is all about. Figuring out what has worked for others and using it in your next innovation. If you enjoyed today's show, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. You can find all the links and resources from this episode, along with every other episode going back to 2005 at philmckinney.com. Just click on podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, such as your thoughts on the new format for the show, topics you would like covered, or any questions you might have. Ping me on Twitter at Phil McKinney, all one word, or on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can find links to where I hang out on social media at philmckinney.com. And as always, thanks for listening.